neither all. Now, you may be thinking, Starshield, why are you showing us this big, ungainly, bloated joke of a tank? Well, it's admittedly not that much of a joke anymore, and it used to be rather adept at sniping. It still is, but I want to come forth and show all of you exactly what 917 has done to our little Lowe buddy here, and why I've actually been enjoying it as of late, and I think a lot of people will now. But, out the gate, as we started doing in the last video, I want to show off the crew to you, not to stress, as I'd said before, what crew skills the crew should have, but just to show you what I'm running and how it will perform in regards to what crew you may happen to be using on yours. If it's better or worse than mine, the Lowe may perform even better or worse respectively. So just going through quick, nearly 5 crew skills. Good lord, I'm glad I went over this because I don't know why I still got preventative maintenance on it, because it doesn't need it anymore. After they changed the transmission to the front engine in the bit, at least I think it's still that way. And also showing the equipment, which in my case, since I've got skills that boost the view range and it's got 400 base, I went ahead and went with vents, rammer, and vert stab, though some of you may want to go with coated optics because it does have such good view range. But I will leave that up to your discretion. It's pretty much whatever floats your boat in that case. But yeah, without further ado, let's take this big old boy out into a match, and I can show you just how stupid it is now, and in a good way. So off we go. And here we've got the Lowe on El Haloof, and not only is it on El Haloof, it is a tier 10 match on El Haloof, which allows me to show off precisely what I want to stress in this video. Is the Lowe, as everyone would have known it from before, was a big, fat, lumbering, relatively squishy, heavy tank. That is no longer the case. It is quicker, it has much better armor, not to where it's OP, but this is actually a serviceable heavy tank in the role of side-scraping and taking damage, or I should say, making use of its armor. Now, as we take a pot turn over here at these tanks crossing getting up top, let's have a very brief look at strat sketch, as we always do. Now, we are on a slow heavy tank. We are obviously, well, not obviously, but it's usually what you want to try and do, is meander on over this way and get over to this A2 corner. Now, you may notice that I've got this dotted line going up here. You can go there with a heavy tank, but more often than not, you're going to either need A, gun depression, or the ability to come out alpha a tank and then get back. We're in a big slow heavy tank, so it's probably not as good an idea. We're much better served over here at A2. Now, some may be asking, why not go over to A1? Well, there's one big problem with this. See these medium tanks I've got here? Invariably you will see opposing medium tanks there. If the enemy team doesn't have any medium tanks, or if they have slow medium tanks, you can probably cross here without issue. However, most oftentimes you're not afforded that luxury, and if you're not in an exceedingly quick tank and you get up over this corner, you will be penalized by crossing, usually taking 1, 2, maybe even 5 shots if they track you, and that will not be fun. So do yourself a favor, if you're going over here, make certain you're either an exceedingly quick vehicle, or the enemy team doesn't have any mediums, they're going to be up over here at Charlie 2. Now, the other thing I want to stress is you're wondering what these lines are. These red dashed arrows. what this is, if you do decide to play the 6-7 line on this map, and hopefully you're not doing it in a heavy, like the Lowe, at the very least, you want to be very mindful of this line. Because if you're out on the western side of the 6, these tanks up on the enemy team, opposing side, will have shots all the way here. You will be within draw range, and they will shoot you if they're any smart. So be very mindful of this. And if you push, it's either going to be up the water line, or well, was the water line, but try it out, or going up the goat paths. That's your best bet. You do not want to be caught out over here, or dare say anywhere out in the middle. Now, the third thing I want to mention, these orange areas, you really do not want to be here in a low camo tank or a heavy tank, because if you go down there, you're going to be stuck there, and it is going to be exceedingly difficult to extricate yourself. And even then, from most of these positions, you will have shots from either up top or outside here, or backing off over on the 3, and you will not be out in the open and focused out. Now, if you're in a high camo TD, possibly. It's still debatable whether you want to go there or not, versus just being some other place that you could easily get out of. But the final thing I want to stress are these blue zones. If you are winning the map, and let's say you're in the green tanks, and you're pushing over here, there invariably be a TD sitting back, and you can expect to take damage from any of these positions, just as I said with the mediums if you're crossing. And if you're pushing to the opposing base, you probably want to go to the outside in and go to the closest mound to the base, instead of going down the 2-3 or the 2 line, or in this case, if you are pushing out here, go quick and get underneath, because if you stay here to take shots on anything, and they've got TDs, they will just whoop on you. So be very, very careful. Now, with that said, we are in a heavy, we're in a low, we're going to come up over here to A2, so I can show off the arrow to everyone. And on that note, let's go ahead and get right back into the match. Now, I will be speeding this up a touch, because I sit back here like a numpty. Usually don't want to take any shots once you know everything's crossed anyway, as well as things are a bit slow to occur up over here at the A2 corner, but when they do, you will see why I'm actually having fun with the Lowe nowadays. Now, we take a quick shot of the T-54. We could have penned that if it went into the base of the turret or the command hatch, but he wasn't the thing we were concerned with. T-49's over there proxy spotting. We've got an IS-3 coming up, and we're going to wait, even though at one point you will notice I don't. But when the action starts going, don't worry, I will slow it down, and we can have a look at exactly what needs to be stressed to all of you about the Lowe. Not very fun, but to be fair, we don't want to push up and round with the T-49 is, because the enemy has the command of the map over here at C2, and if we go over that T-49 is, we would have done little to no good, because as you can see, the STA is behind, and pretty soon more people are going to come round, and they're going to get hosed, along with where this 263 is, and I believe they are extended a bit. Didn't get covered by the mediums. That's beside the point. Getting back into things, JP bounced to Lowe. I mean, not Lowe, Moss. Oh, I wish I would have waited on that. Let me see if I still got the view. Stressing this to everyone quick. The shot on the 183, he's at a very good angle on us, but we penned him in the middle of the side. If you see a 215B or a 183 at this angle, oh dear lord, the camera went wonky. Relative to you on that corner, aim in the mid, you'll pen. You can do that with C-57s as well. Getting back onto us, stuff they wanted to show off, because a lot of people don't seem to make use of that. And speeding things up just a touch once again, otherwise this will get incredibly boring. Trying to take a shot on the Moss's cheeks. We actually can pen that, at least before they buff that thing, if they buff the Moss. But it's always good to try and take a shot in the cheeks. Now here, look, I got a bit antsy. If RNG wanted to flip us the bird, we would have been screwed there. Don't go around this corner, slow tank. Don't be me. Don't get impatient. Not that I do consistently, but when you're playing it, God knows what hour in the morning. Tracking the IS-3, making a ways to repair kit. Now we're still just going to sit here. They do have the meds. We're looking around us, seeing what's happening. And the poor T-49 we've got dies. I do feel bad, but Ruthless, if you're watching, you were very instrumental in how things went during this, as you're about to see. Now, we're going to cover our lower plate, and this is where the fun begins. I'm going to come around this corner, pop Mr. M103, he bounces off of our turret. Watch this, Moss, lower turret, bounced off. This is about all they can shoot. M103 buddy's going to come over here, we're going to pop him, oh no, 57, sorry, in the cheek. M103 bounced off again, same place, T57 hitting in the turret. T57 hitting the track, the 183 shooting us in the turret, doing little to no damage because it's so thick. This is stupid. The 103 now just giving up, not caring, loading up PG. The Lowe now, the hammer on the Lowe. And apparently I switched APCR by accident. And again, 183 popping us in the turret, doing little to nothing. Forgive the camera. 103 bouncing off again. They're hitting our turret. They're having an incredibly hard time petting. Because they have buffed the turret on this thing quite a bit. We even managed to bounce a couple shots from the IS-3 and the Moss that went into the upper hull, if the decals are still there. And it's stupid. If you are side scraping in a Lowe now, and you've got that lower plate of yours covered, it's pretty much good game at that point. But the 103 does wise up finally. Actually, not yet, sorry, he just bounced off the turret again. But he will wise up eventually, and just load up heat and shoot in the lower hull. But that's because he waited for me to come in, it wasn't angled as much, and he finally pinned. But this is a very brief match because I sped it up, and there wasn't much to what we did. We just came in, aimed shots, and laughed as things kept bouncing off of our turret. Now, this is precisely what I wanted to stress to everyone. The Lowe plays as the heavy tank as it should. It can side scrape now. Its turret is just literally ridiculous. And let's see exactly why that is, as this bumps up, because this takes some time to do so. And have a look at what replays for the earnings, since this is a premium vehicle, and Tanks GG. So you can see exactly why we bounced as much as we did in this match. So, off to what replays. Right, looking at the after battle. That was a exceedingly good match. Not only did we block nearly 4,000 damage in a tier 10 match versus a T57, versus a Moss, versus a 183. God, that's so stupid. But we'll get into that in Takes GG. 3,000 damage with 120k income. Let me see if there's any modifiers. No modifiers. So, with a premium account, during 3,000 damage, that is an awesome amount of credits. That feels better than most. So, if you're looking for a credit in it, and you know how to play a heavy tank and side scrape the thing, or get hull down, you will like this thing quite a bit. Now, another nice thing is on expenditures, even though I accidentally, I think it was when repairing the turret, or it might have been the gun, hitting APCR, we fired off a couple of rounds of APCR, and that was a tier 10 match, which you're not going to need that many of them, because you've got 234 pen. That hardly cost us anything, and we still came out far ahead. Now, what I really want to stress is looking at Tanks GG. So let's go have a look at that tab, because this will detail to all of you statistically why the Lowe performed the way it just did. So let's transition over to that, because unfortunately I didn't have it open in the same window at the time. Okay. Now looking at the Lowe in Tanks GG, we're going to compare it to what I believe everyone would agree is the best analog, the Tiger 2. Since for all intents and purposes, that's what this tank really plays like the most, especially now that they've given it subsequent buffs. And the T-34 I put in here for a couple of reasons. One, it is, I would dare say, the closest counterpart for the Lowe with regards to a premium tank, a non-pref one that you may be weighing it against in order to, purchase. And I think the Lowe has all but outmoded the T-34 with this update, which I don't like admitting to, at least in a couple of regards, which we'll get into it. And looking first at DPM. DPM is the exact same as the T-34, and it is noticeably less than the Tiger 2. It has more pen than the Tiger 2 at 234, which is awesome. Penetration, even in a 10 match you can get away with this on down to everything you're shooting at. Average damage 320, standard fare for the 1-5s on heavies. T-34's got more, it's got 120 mil, so that's all well and good. But we've got this 1.5-second discrepancy between the Lowe and the Tiger 2, and it's effectively the same gun. So you're rocking up with noticeably worse of a gun, which is why a lot of people hated the Lowe, because they didn't have the armor to compensate, which we will see it genuinely does now, or I should say statistic-wise. So you already saw it in the replay how utterly retarded that was. Now, shell velocity 1150, that's down near APCI levels, so it's very adept at sniping. I mean, everyone knew this that had a low prior, and it was very good at sniping, and it still is, but that's not to say you should do it anymore, as evidence of the match we just witnessed. Now, the gun handling, and rightfully so, is a little bit worse than the Tiger 2. I think this is justified. It's still exceptional dispersion for a heavy tank, especially for a 1-5mm gun. It's not moving that quick as it is, good end accuracy, and the aim time is a bit longer than the Tiger 2, but I've never felt that this tank didn't have the ability to snapshot a target, unless you're going downhill at max speed, in which case you'd probably try to ram, not shoot a target. Now, continuing on, gun depression. This is actually something I don't think they needed to buff on the Lowe, because this encroaches on what the T-34 does, and you will notice even more so with the armor model. I don't like that. I think 8 was fine. This places it better than the Tiger 2. It's awesome that it has 10 degrees gun depression, but I don't necessarily think it was needed. And you've got, oh dear lord, the cat's going nuts for the bottle cap on the floor. My apologies. It has a 40-degree gun elevation. Now you may be thinking to yourselves, good lord, Bonnie. Not that, sorry. That was the cat again. You may be thinking to yourselves, well, you don't need that much gun elevation. Well, let me detail this to you. Let's say you're on mines and there's a tank up top. Typically, you would have to reverse your tank into the leap, get the gun up in order to shoot it, and by which time the enemy tank... Good lord, Bonnie! Forgive me, this is literally the 5th time Bonnie's been going nuts with one of her toys on the floor, so unfortunately everyone watching is going to have to deal with it. You'll be able to shoot them and not have to rock your tank up against the side, or if it's something along the lines of, I think it was Angst, and you're up underneath a lip and you need to shoot up, and in which case again you don't have to get your tank finagled up against a rock or something just to shoot up. Icing on the cake, very rare, it's going to happen, you're going to need to do it, but it's nice to have. Now, the speed. The Lowe used to have, I believe it was, close to an 81 horsepower per ton. Yes, because it used to have 800 horsepower on the engine instead of 1,000, which was one of the buffs that they gave it. And if I can go to the right bloody tab, it now makes the Lowe quicker than the Tiger 2. Which I don't believe anyone would call the Tiger 2 outwardly slow for a heavy, but now that it's quicker than the Tiger 2, that's a bit odd to me. It's very nice having a mobile Lowe, but when it's arguably quicker in a flat line versus a Tiger 2, I don't think that's quite a good thing. Train resistance is worse though, so it mitigates this a touch. And the fact that the Tiger 2 has better turret traverse and hull traverse, but it still doesn't feel all that bad on the Lowe now, the additional... Good Lord, Bonnie! I am sorry, she's been doing this for an hour straight. And it's not because of the catnip. God bless it, kitty. Onto the armour, back on track, oh god. This is incredibly misleading. Oh, I'm about to throw a cat out of the window, not that I actually would. But the turret armour. Look at this, and this is going back, and as I said, it feels like it's encroaching upon what the T-34 does. Have a look at this. Going into the collision model, I had the gun down there for a reason. Anywhere flat on, this turret is stupidly thick. You're either ricocheting or needing an incredible amount of pen to go through. And the only thing that's even close to being thin is a fine line next to the turret. Otherwise it's incredibly thick with a mantlet or thick due to the sloping on the side. The turret on this is better than the T-34 now. Now a lot of you might be shouting, well, it's still better when slightly angled. This is true, but as far as single target or peaking a ridge, most maps it's either going to be at range or everything relative to you is going to be within maybe 5-10 deflection off the side. And the only hopes I have of penning you is very, very small areas on the inset, nowhere else. Because it's either auto bounce or they just don't have enough pen to go through. And you've got that 10 degrees gun depression, which the T-34 has as well. Plus the T-34, actually I'm not going to bother bringing it up. All of the entirety of the top of the turret on the T-34, if you have a 120mm gun, it will actually, with the existing, I was about to say, overbalance, overpen mechanics in the game, you can go through the roof of the turret on the T-34, which is why I believe the Lowe is better, because you've got 120mm armor, you're not overmatching that. And actually that's looking at the command hatch. Or no, it wasn't. But it is incredibly hard to pen this thing, short of being close range and above it aiming at the command hatch, or if you're using its gun depression, well, you're a bit boned because you're not penning it. And the T-34 doesn't exactly have that same luxury. Now, getting back into the stats before we look too much at the armor model, you do have more hit points than the T-34. Which again, it already had the good hit points, but just to say it's... I don't quite like that it's outmoded in the T-34 to such a degree. I love it. I love having a Lowe that's actually good. That's enough of the armor though. Let's continue on down to the view ranges. This thing has a 400 meter view range, as you probably remember me saying in the garage. That is incredibly good for a heavy tank. You can slap coated optics on this with not that decent of a crew, and most likely being spotting things at the same time, if not before they spot you. That's awesome, especially if you decide to play this thing as a sniper, which I don't think I'm going to be doing anymore, in light of all this faff with the armor, which is good, just a bit awkward. Camo coefficient, take CG's balked, I couldn't tell you, it's obviously worse than the Tiger 2, it's a bigger target. Fire chance on the engine, it's a mid-mountain engine, I believe, so being penned in your weak spot on the front, it will be the transmission, so that 20% does not apply, if I recall, and I don't believe I've been caught on fire in the Lowe ever since they made those changes. to the engine not causing fire, only the engine. So, let's look a bit more into that armor model. You will recall that we had 100mm on the sides. Actually, I didn't state it before, but just to say, and I want to put the gun down at this angle. If my mouse would stop being stupid and pick it up appropriately. If you back out at this angle, you're presenting the best chance to bounce, thickest armor on the sides, and best on the upper glacis. So let's go from a forwards view. If you're in a tier 8 match, or if somebody lower rolls at a tier 9 or a 10, even with a heavy tank at 2D, they've got a good chance of bouncing off of your side, which is why the lower is incredibly good at side scraping now, because you can back out of a corner because you've got to send them out of the turret, and they're probably only going to have shots on your sides or your tracks. And unlike the E100, you can't just shoot through here and hit up into what's effectively going to be the lower glacis, or the sides, because you have incredibly thick tracks on the sides with just as good, if not better, armor on the side. I nearly called it torso, side hull. So this thing's much better actually playing a heavy tank. It's not this slow, stupid, ungainly beast as I'd likened it to at the beginning. The lower actually has armor on it now. Obviously, if you see it front on, aim at the lower plate. The upper plate's been significantly buffed. I think it used to be 120 on the upper plate, or maybe it was 140, but it was enough as to where, if it was a tier 8 CT, tier 9 heavy tank, you could just go through the upper plate before, but now at an angle, you actually need an average or high roll to do so. So with all that they've done with this upper, lower turret buff to the armor, no body, you made enough noise there, you sod off. And the buff to the engine, the lower you may genuinely want to have a go at it, not least of which, if they put it out as a rental. But as an overall, for anyone that's either hated this thing before, you may need to give it a little bit of respect now, if only because it's been buffed to such a degree that it plays like the 100-ton tank it should. Bonnie plays. And for anyone that hasn't played it, and you've caught all of this wind that it is a garbage vehicle, it's far from it now. The only downside it has is, as we looked at originally, it's just short of 1700 DPM, which isn't that good for a heavy tank, let alone a tier 8 one. But overall, as far as gameplay goes, if you want a heavy tank that plays like a heavy tank, it's good at side scraping, you may want to give the lower a look at. I personally enjoy it now. Ran 5 matches in it. All of them were, I think, anywhere from 1700 to 3200 damage, but they're all in positions you saw in the match I just played, to where I was either hold down or side scraping off of a corner, and people will have complications penning you. But let's say you like tanks closer to the IS-3, where you have good mobility for heavy, you have a higher alpha gun, and you want a bit more of being able to play the map versus what a Tiger 2 can, you probably won't like the lower. It's still a bit cumbersome for a heavy, but it is quicker than a Tiger 2 now. But overall, just to say, this thing very much plays like a heavy should. Side scraping off of a corner in a tier 8 match, you're going to be bouncing a lot of shots, either because of the angle, or they're not going to have the pen to go through. The upper plate, it's a bit of a bear now. Good Lord, Bonnie, what problem do you have? As I said, this is about the 5th time, so bear with the cat, please. And the lower plate is squishy, as it should be, because it's the same thing with the Tiger 2. So overall, hopefully, this put the tank in how it should be presented with 9.17. Maybe it sparks some interest. That wasn't quite the intention of this video. It was just to go to show that the lower is not the big cumbersome, EXP pinata that it used to be. And hopefully you'll learn some things from it. And as I always say, thank you all very much for watching. Hopefully you found this entertaining, if not informative. And I have been Starshield, and I'm catch you all later.